Actually, let's finish up. We were just talking about the Muppet Show.
Right.
Let's talk
Yes.
about the Muppet Show and finish that.
Right. The Muppet Show was Jim's dream. The day he hired me, he described that show. And that was back in '69. It didn't get on the air till '76, I believe. And he described the show almost completely. And it was his dream to get that on the air. And his other dreams were to make movies. He said, I don't want to have just Muppet look. Some of them won't look like Muppets at all. I wanted to do great dragons or monsters. Or he liked the idea of things like the labyrinth things. He wanted the, great bat-winged creatures and that kind of thing. And I remember when Labyrinth came out, it was one of his few huge disappointments. He went through a period of depression after that flopped. But unfortunately, 2 or 3 months before, a movie called Legend, an L word, one word, Labyrinth Legend, and it was all strange creatures like I forget the name of the actor.
Tom Cruise.
No,
Tim Curry.
Tim Curry, and he played this fabulous red devil with enormous horns, and that was only moderately successful. And people, when Labyrinth came out, they thought they'd seen it. I think that was one of the problems. And he put his heart in that. It was quite amazing. A lot of stuff in it. He did some Escher, the stairs going in every direction and all that stuff. And but he basically did the things that he had so many ideas in his mind that his kids took 7 or 8 years to use up the ideas that he told them after he was gone. He kept his mind was always working, and he always had lived in this incredible world of stuff that he was just creating. But he was always open to something new, too, that would inspire him for another great idea. But the Muppet Show was, CBS, I remember the day I happened to have lunch with him that he said, I got the greatest news. He says, CBS has bought the show. The Muppet Show is going on the air. And that was in '75. And so the next day I saw him again. I said, so how's it? He says, they've canceled already. And I said, they canceled? He said, yep, they dropped me. I said, one day? He says, yeah. And so it was the only one, and he took to other people, and the only one that really bought it was Lord Lou Grade, the BBC. And he said, this is perfect. And it was the last great variety show. And it was like a lot of the corniness of vaudeville. And it was funny, it made a huge amount of money. And CBS had 6 stations that had actually believed in it, so they had a little finger, but they were very disappointed that they would have made the money instead of BBC. And eventually Jim was able, and Jim didn't own the show. Lord Lou Grade did. And later when Lord Lou Grade went bankrupt, Jim was able to buy it. And Jim was able to buy 2 of the films he'd made that Lou Grade had financed. So Jim ended up owning everything he'd done, and he was very greatly satisfying about that, because it's quite a huge catalog of stuff.
So your work on Sesame Street was consuming enough, continued to be more and more so, it sounded like. Would you have to request a certain amount of time off from that busy schedule as he did all the movies, where you would do work on the movies?
No, we'd always, you do these other productions when you don't have the obligation, like for Sesame Street, it's an inviolable period. You don't get time off from that. They've got to depend on you. They've got the studio for a certain time, etc. And so you've got to go on with the schedules are inviolate. But then there's the rest of the year, and so they book the time with us. And my wife Deborah is my booking agent and business manager, so because there's a lot of work to it, a lot more work than you'd ever think. For how much you see me on TV, it's a lot more work than you might think. It's just getting arranged.
Like appearances and that kind of thing.
Appearances and TV appearances. Now I don't do many live appearances, and but I did, for instance, just did Hollywood Squares, and that's always fun. And that's a real fun show because you make it up as you go on. But I really enjoyed being on the Muppet Show, but it's an awful lot of work. I've never been a great person with. I was not a good team worker with the Muppets. because if they often do choreographed dance stuff, and they're okay, left, right, left. I'm going right, left. I can't get it right. I can't dance. I've got 2 feet that are both the wrong ones on the wrong side or something. I've never been good. And for a long time, every time Jim would book me to one of his productions, because I was the only Muppet with feet, he'd do me into a dance routine, and I'm the worst dancer in the world. But Richard Hunt, who was one of the puppeteers, was now gone, alas, wonderful fellow, and he gave me some great advice. He plays Sweetums on the Muppet Show, the big shaggy monster, big floppy feet, and he said, pretend Big Bird. Big Bird thinks he's the greatest dancer in the world, so pretend Big Bird just thinks he's a great dancer. So just imitate a great dance. So I tell choreographers, show me what you kind of want, and I'll show you what I can do that'll be like that. But don't expect me to do 1, 2, 3, 4, and then do 3 for 3. I can't do that. I'll do looks like a vamp or whatever they do. I can't do that stuff. But as soon as I did that, Big Bird dance was great. I've danced on with the Rockettes on Radio City Music Hall, and with my own Rockette, and I'm out there strutting. But I have to make it up myself. I cannot learn. My feet have no brains at all. I could ride a unicycle, though, and stuff like that. And I'm a figure skater on roller skates and stuff.
You mentioned that you almost quit because after the show, the first year,
yes.
after the show ended production, then what were you going to do? Did you ever have that feeling again after that first season?
No. The second season, I was so excited about working on the show when I saw what the scripts were. The scripts suddenly were an awful lot of meat for me, some real meaty material. Big Bird suddenly became more important to the show, such as the silly goose, and I call the village big dolt hanging around, and I think that it was really. All of a sudden it was exciting, and I was staying in various places. For a little bit I stayed at Jim's house. He had plenty of bedrooms, and then I stayed at the Y for a while because I had got a great room, and it was a beautiful room. Looked at the park, and it had its own private bathroom. I was pleased about that, and I got to like New York, and so I was glad I stayed with it because Kermit Love was right. I would never have another opportunity like that. I really can't imagine that it ever would be, and it's been a really great experience, a feeling of doing that. And I if I do it 3 more years, I'll have done it half my life, and I'll be 70. But I'd like to be able to. I'd love to do 40 years of it if I could, because that'll be 35. I really would. I would like to do it as long as I can hold my arm up. Sometimes it's annoying trying to get to New York. You see how far I live from New York, and I've never moved. I do keep we have a studio there. Just one room, no bedroom. But it's good enough place to hang a hat. It's all peeling now, and I have to face that. But nobody ever goes there, so it doesn't matter. But I just could never move from where I live. I'm a country boy. But I could never willingly walk away from that show. I couldn't imagine it. But there's enough time for me to pursue I hope to have sell prints of what I paint a great deal is Big Bird in imaginative situations like walking on a moon other than our own from a rocket ship parked over in the back, snorkeling and discovering sunken treasure, visiting friends up in a tree he has to climb. I just for some reason I always paint Big Bird doing things, but I think maybe I could make a career of that too. I hope to.
And obviously you have full authority to do that because...
No, I don't.
Oh, you don't?
But you can paint anything you want. I mean, Andy Warhol used to draw Donald Duck, and the Disney people are very, very jealous of their characters with good reason. And I don't know whether he had to make a deal with them because you could buy prints of his Donald Duck or Marilyn Monroe or whatever. And so I've never tried to sell prints. We sell prints, but only for a charity at the children. It goes for children with AIDS. We sell the prints only on set. to the people who work there. Sort of an unofficial kind of thing. So there's not many of the prints out there. So maybe I can make a deal someday and do them.
What when Jim Henson died, how what kind of effect did that have on Sesame Street?
Well, at first, of course, it was the most devastating news I'd ever heard, and it felt like, oh my God, it's the end of Camelot. He was just the master puppeteer, a good fellow, a good friend, and a genius. And we had this funeral with 6,000 people came, and I've never seen a funeral where total strangers were crying all over America that day. And he died the same day as Sammy Davis Jr. It was wondered, his children, if I was devastated, imagine how they must have felt. He was wonderful with his children, and they were absolutely devastated, I'm sure. I know I was, and Deborah. Well, they kind of didn't know what to do for a little bit, but they got it together, whether or not they would even sell it then, but they kind of got it together, and they have done it. They kind of a lot of people, a lot of us feel that you put the five together, you got a good part of Jim Henson, and they've done a wonderful job. But of course, they have sold the company now, belonged to a German company, and now the Muppet side of it has been sold to Sesame Place. So now Big Bird, for the first time, is owned by Sesame Street. But Miss Piggy and that gang, they're all busy. They're going to do the Muppet Show again, I think, hoping, and but it may end up being owned by some other company.
What do you think the future of puppeteering is?
You see a lot more of it than you know. Even in some ways, when you see what they can do with character generation with computers, you wonder if they'll even need humans eventually, let alone puppets. But there's still a good reason to use puppets at this point, at least. I think that films in the last 20 years have used an awful lot more puppets than you think. And they're very clever. Sometimes it's the real dog, sometimes it's a puppet. And sometimes done well, sometimes you can tell, oh, this is the puppet one. But I think that there'll be greater and greater things done. There'll be other Jim Hensons. I know I was honored to be asked to join them and thrilled that it has gone this far. Last year, the Library of Congress made me a living legend, and I think that's kind of strange. I thought I was only a legend in my own mind. No, I don't. I'm rather humble about it. I'm proud to say I'm very humble about this. No, but I'm really thrilled that the puppets have been able to serve so well education, and I think that even regular teachers might find some good use of puppets now and again. Often children will tell you something with a puppet they'll never be able to tell you themselves. And so puppets will always have some purpose, all the way to as simple as pulling it out of your pocket and reaching a child. And it isn't just children who make good audiences for puppets. My stuff happened to have been more for kids, although if I give a puppet show and there's grown-ups there's plenty of jokes the kids aren't getting, but there's plenty of jokes the grown-ups are getting, and it can get even a little cute or a little wry, but I make sure that it's nothing that children can tell, because I'm not going to be the one to corrupt them. But I can throw a few mild adult jokes, like Punch saying, "Come on, let me hold the baby. It's my baby." That's what you think, she says, and the kids don't get that. But I think puppets are going to be with us for a long time. They've been around for a couple thousand years, probably.
And was your mom able to see you reach your dream on a successful show?
Yes. They. It's funny. My father lived to be 91, and my mother 88, 89, and I would give them Big Bird postcards. And it's funny. They'd go to the supermarket, and they'd see little kids riding in the carriage, the push cart. And my father would go over to him and hand them a Big Bird picture. She said, "Do you know that we're the mother and father of Big Bird?" The kid would look at him. For one thing, it's a bird, And there's this man who was pushing 90, and he doesn't look anything like a bird. Well, he did look like a little old bird by the time he was ready to leave. But I thought I didn't want to spoil his fun by saying these kids must think you're nuts. So yeah, my mother had great satisfaction about that, and I thanked her many times for giving me a wonderful career.
Are you approached by aspiring puppeteers?
Yeah.
And what do you tell them?
Well, one of the secrets, of course, is to anybody aspiring to be a puppeteer or be a great engineer or anything else is you kind of setting your little boat to sail for that goal. And one of the secrets I felt is to expect you'll be successful. Because if you think, I probably won't make it, you probably won't. Don't make self-fulfilling prophecies or anything. But I have, just the other day I was in Hollywood and at a mall, and I had just been on A&E, and I got to talk quite a bit on that. And this young man came up and said, he told me he was weighing whether she'd even approach me, but he said, are you Caroll Spinney? And I said, yes. And he said, oh, I hope you don't mind me speaking to it. And I thought it was so funny because I remember going up to people when I had somebody from WBZ when I was 14. I could hardly speak, and he was only known on that one channel. And so I understand, although I feel funny that it's now me that they're doing that. But I like to encourage young puppeteers, and I've had a few protégés like that, and give them all the encouragement I can. You don't have to worry that somebody's going to take your job. You do it right. You'll have your job to as long as you want it, and maybe not. Who knows? But that isn't my problem so far. And it's sometimes I get letters, and there's a young fellow in Tasmania who I keep writing. He's got a wonderful character. What's the character they have in Australia? Oh, it's a funny word they have in their legend, and we don't have it, and it's really a wonderful character. His puppets look great. They look like his version of the Muppets. But I've been writing him lots of letters of encouragement, and he'll make it. And I think that's kind of good when people, if you do write off to somebody that they do, you try to answer them, for goodness sakes, and it's kind of nice. Although I sometimes you have a little worry that you could have a stalker, because I had one. But it wasn't about puppets, but I was just too nice to a fan. It took me years to get rid of her. It was really, phone calls all night, and then hang up as soon as you pick up.
That's part of being famous.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned the first season that when you went back to the local show, that you were halfway to heaven. Has 32 years on this show been heaven?
Oh, yeah. Like I say, the only negative is that, oh my God, I got to drive to New York again. I'm really tired of that ride because I've done it a couple thousand times? I don't know. It's 153 miles to the apartment, another 40 minutes by car across the city to Queens. For 24 years, we were right within 14 blocks of the studio, so I rode my bike for 24 years to work. And I used to wonder how many other television personalities rode a bike to work. I thought it was fun. And now I have to take a car across the 59th Street Bridge. I'd much prefer the bike, but I would never take a bike across the city.
But it's worth it.
Yeah, it's worth it. It's just such. Like I said, I can't imagine walking away from it. It'd be like, it's just, if you really loved something. I guess I was Mickey Mouse. Could you imagine not being Mickey Mouse anymore? But actually, Big Bird got to be I remember one year, New York Times did a poll. They found that Big Bird was the most popular children's character in America at that time. Now there's a lot of much more competition now. But Mickey never really had a chance. He's on celluloid, whereas Big Bird can actually look at you and talk to you and not have to be pre-recorded. So I think Big Bird had a huge advantage. And his feathers fall off, and the kids get to take one home.
A little sample, huh?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Fantastic.